So we keep on doing experimentation with the language, especially in the register of advertising. क्योंकि अगर आप एडवर्टाइजिंग के रजिस्टर में जाएंगे तो आप देखेंगे कि टू मच ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन है विद द लैंग्वेज. सो इफ इट इज बीइंग डन नोइंगली then it won't be treated as an error, or if he is doing unknowingly then it won't be acceptable, because if he is doing it knowingly then there will be an element of creativity, then his experimentation that would be treated as an experimentation with language, a kind of innovation with language, so he is innovating. But if he is doing it unknowingly, and that you have to peep into his mind. What he has done is doing, whatsoever he has done was intended or it simply happened. If he does not know about the rule, then it will be an error. If he knows about the rule and even then he is deviating from the norm, then it will be a sort of what do we call it, experimentation with the language, and it will have that element of creativity with it. So experimentation will be acceptable, but error will not be acceptable. If you are committing errors, then people will laugh at you, and if you are making experiments, then of course that will be acceptable, and you simply, that amuse you. And we have seen that kind of experimentation, especially in the registral variety of advertisement. We sometimes change the spelling, we sometimes do all sorts of tricks and gimmicks to attract the attention of passerby, and that kind of experimentation is very common. So these examples simply suggest that the understanding of equivalence depends on how far they presuppose a repertoire of semantic universals rich enough and distinguished enough to match the meaning gradients between the simple and complex signs of the two languages, because the two languages will not be similar to each other. From semantic model, now we go to pragmatic model. Pragmatic model is mainly about the intended meaning. In pragmatic model, a translator is supposed to peep into the mind of the author, because without going deep into the mind of author, you cannot translate it effectively. So to be a good translator, you must know what a translator intends to communicate. So, and this is how pragmatic model is somewhat different from the semantic model, because in semantic model, the focus was mainly on word-meaning relationship. But in pragmatic model, the focus is on the intended meaning. We were citing one example of domestic and domestic translated in Hindi Urdu with words like paltu, gharelu, kind of expressions. But in some situations, these can be treated differently. Sometimes we use expressions like intelligent. I can call someone as intelligent. He is very intelligent. Now, this, if we go by the semantic model, intelligent will be translated as chalak, aqalmand, or chatur. But when we go by pragmatic model, we will be, or we shall have to look into the intended meaning of the author. Was author really intended to communicate the same meaning or not? Whether he was really interested in calling the person intelligent or not, because sometimes we use expressions, these expressions sarcastically, and where the meaning changes. So this is how the pragmatic model is mainly about language use, how language is being used by the author. What does it suggest? It simply gives you an idea that the semantic model cannot account for the pragmatically motivated transformations and modifications made to a linguistically educated target text. By pragmatics, we refer to the various uses of language by speakers and writers in particular communicative situation. The translator must usually modify the source text using a variety of methods, including explication, deletion, and modulation, in order to produce a more satisfactory and pragmatically adequate translation. Because sometimes you don't have to translate literally, because if you are translating literally, the meaning or the message will be lost somewhere. But if you are trying to peep into the mind of the translator, then only you will be in a position to translate it accurately. Textually adequate translation is better than anything that could be produced using only the more evident equivalents suggested by a language systematic model. Translations are more than duplications or restructuring of source language sequences. They represent configuration of text sentences. The sentence by sentence progression of a translation is determined by top-down processes driven by the convention that are obtained for a particular textual category in the target language. But in pragmatic model is more bottom-up translation. Now we must know the difference between top-down approach and bottom-up approach. In top-down approach, we start from the text and then slowly we go to the meaning. But in bottom-up approach, we are more interested in the meaning. We try to look at the intended meaning of the author, and this is how we translate the text from. So in pragmatic model, we adopt a bottom-up translation approach rather than top-down approach, and this is how pragmatic model is somewhat different from semantic model. To elaborate this point further, I can cite a couplet from Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and the line goes like this: ये दाग दाग उजाला ये शब गजीद सहर, वो इंतज़ार था जिसका ये वो सहर तो नहीं, ये वो सहर तो नहीं जिसकी आरज़ू लेकर चले थे यार के मिल जाएगी कहीं ना कहीं, फलक के दश्त में तारों की आखिरी मंजिल. So this is a poem Subah Azadi by Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and this has been translated by David Matthews and Kernan's. So Kernan's translation goes like this: This leprous daybreak, dawn night's fangs have mangled. This is not the long looked for break of day, not the clear dawn in quest of which those comrades set out, believing that in heaven's wide void somewhere must be the stars' last halting place. And David Matthews' translation goes like this: This pitted dawn, a snake-bitten sky of morning, we waited for this day, it came at last, but this was not our hope of heaven's dawning. The dreams our comrades cherished in the past, hope against hope, we looked towards the sky to see where stars might set. Now if you compare the two translations and the original text, you will find that nowhere Faiz Ahmad Faiz has used the term comrade in his text. He has used the expression yaar, chale the yaar ke mil jayegi kahin na kahin. But this yaar has been translated by both by David Matthews and Kernan's as comrades. I read out the lines again. Set out, not that clear dawn in quest of which those comrades set out, believing that in heaven's wide void somewhere must be the stars' last halting place. Now, the point I was just trying to suggest is that how things are modified. In the original English, the comrade, well, we know the literal meaning of comrade and how comrade is different from yar. Yar can be used for any friend. But Faiz Ahmad Faiz, the hidden meaning, the intended meaning was comrade. For Faiz, it was the intended meaning of faz for this expression yar was comrade, and both these translators have been able to capture the notion of yar in their writings by using comrades. That suggests that you sometimes modify the text. You do not go word to word, rather you add something new to elaborate the point intended by the writer. So in that way, pragmatic model is somewhat different from the semantic model. Now we go to the next model, and that is the text linguistic model. In the text linguistic model, meaning is not sentence bound. That is the major point in text bound model. Is rather it has a global meaning situated somewhere in the text. So a translator attempts to reach to that global meaning to determine the meaning of the text itself. A term generally used is used in translation studies, and that is the semantic fulcrum. So in text linguistic model, we try to locate the semantic fulcrum. For example, in the poem that we were reciting just now, both the translator were in a position to locate the semantic fulcrum of that particular poem, Subh-e Azadi, and this is how they could translate yar or replace yar or translate yar with comrade. So in text linguistic model locates equivalence at a textual and communicative level and not at the sentential or lexical level. So this is how it is different. So the whole text is before you and not the sentence of a particular text. So you don't go sentence to sentence. It is not sentence bound, rather you try to make it text bound. What is the meaning of that particular expression in that particular text? Because if you change the text, the meaning may also change. The translator facilitates the textuality of the target text by mediating the two textual system. Translations according to this model are text-induced text productions. And so the major idea of text linguistic model is that there is a meaning which is global in nature, and you have to capture that global meaning rather than sentential meaning. But in a particular sentence, take the same poem again, yar. Now in a sentential meaning, yar may be translated as friend, but in a text linguistic model, that can be taken up as because that is the semantic fulcrum, because who Faz is and what kind of writing he does and whom he is addressing. So that kind of approach gives the some idea about the global meaning of the original as the determining factor in the text linguistic model. Go to the next model, and that is the sociolinguistic model. It was Ferdinand de Saussure who divided, who talked about the different dichotomies, la langue, la parole. And so when we come to la parole, the way languages are used in society, we find that there are different, languages can easily be divided into different stratum. Language used by a upper class, or the languages used by the lower class people, and especially in South we have caste dialects. Each caste has its own way of speaking the same language. So